Wakefield, it's the Nolan Car at Night Show, inviting you to join Nolan as guest this week, Philip Bardowell, to the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Nolan.
Back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the show. And joining me, it's a distinct pleasure and honor of myself to have this guest on. Not only is he a musician, he is a parent, he is in Southern California. He's also on the front line of the medical world, saving people's lives all across Southern California. He has played with the Beach Boys, Jan and Dean. He has some pretty good solo music as well. He is the one and only Mr. Philip Bardowell. How are you doing today, Philip?
Great, Nolan. It's great to see you.
Of course, it's a pleasure, as well as just watching videos of yourself during the days of your time with the Beach Boys and those that are available of Jan and Dean. It was a pleasure to be able to connect with you, and you being willing enough and to set aside time to do this. It means a lot. I mentioned in your intro that you're on the front line of the medical world, saving lives and helping people. Besides that, how's it been for you the last few years of these interesting times we find ourselves in?
Interesting times indeed. It's been good. It's been up and down. Obviously we all went through a tumultuous couple of years, and a lot of pretty bad stuff happened, I think, all around. But then I think a lot of good stuff came from it, and we're still learning what that stuff is. So we all kind of hunkered down, made the best of it, and everything at the moment is going well. I feel really blessed to be alive, have a roof over my head,
Sure,
and be surrounded by people I love. And again, I have a great community of friends, both from the music career that spanned many years, and just family, and in my new job as an RN. I just very blessed, and actually doing music at church. I mean, I'm just, for me, it's all one thing. The music, the ministry, and the nursing, it's all the same. It's just
sure.
different ways of expressing it. So
Well,
things are going well. Thank you for asking.
well, that's all you can ask for, and to be both in fields you are, both musical and the health world, it gives you a great appreciation, I'm sure, for your own health, but also to be able to do the small things when going out to go play music, because everything was put on a hold, and that I'm sure gave you a greater appreciation for those things, but also a new level of patience to finally go out and go do things again. I want to sort of start off here reading upon you and doing some research. First, coming from Kingston, Jamaica, before coming to the States in Southern California. Growing up, and I don't know how much you grew up in Jamaica, and you can share about that if you want. But how much of before you came to Southern California was present in your musical aspirations as a young kid?
Well, I came from Jamaica when I was 3, so I was born there, and we came to California when I was very young. So I didn't really have a recollection of life there.
Sure,
I lived there just long enough to develop that strange dialect, because I
sure.
started speaking like this as a little boy, because that's how my dad spoke. And my mother's from Colombia, so she had a very thick accent. So it's actually a miracle, I think, that I speak English, to be
Sure.
honest with you. But I don't have a large, but yeah, we came to Southern California, to Lakewood, California. And then when I was in 3rd grade, we moved to Cypress, California. And that's kind of where most of my childhood memories are from. And that's when I got into music.
So
So
you started at a young age, and I like to joke with Gary. I joked with Gary Griffin when he was on here, and Bobby Figueroa and a bunch of others, of saying my musical ability, although it's sort of connected to your pal Dr. Love, Mike Love. My musical abilities were all of saxophone for all of 5 seconds in middle school, before I said I can't cut the mustard with this anymore. But to see and read that you started at a very early age and were successful at an early age is definitely admirable. And some they may know him. He's a little known actor that you played in the band with. His name is John Stamos. Was only on a small time show called Full House. If you starting that young at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, what was that like for you to experience playing music at that young, but also having a band of sorts?
well, it's twofold. The young part is playing piano and playing recitals, which scared the heck out of me. I started on piano. And then I picked up a guitar when my parents bought me a Les Paul copy. I was a big fan of Jimmy Page, and they got me this guitar that looks
Sure.
like his. And I learned Stairway to Heaven. I didn't even have a pick. I didn't have a distortion pedal. I played with my thumb. So I was around 11 years old, or maybe 12, I'm not sure, but My older brother, who's also a musician, went and played a choir concert. He backed them, and there was a drummer, and it was John, and they went down to San Diego, California, and they backed this choir. John and myself and my brother went to this junior high school called Lexington Junior High School. So my brother came back and he said, "Hey, I met this guy who's really cool, and he wants to come over, and maybe we want to start a band." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So one day, John's dad drove over to our house in a white El Camino with the open back, same car that his dad drove to the day he died, by the way. And he had this orange drum set. It was an Astro drum set. Pulled up, we unloaded his drum set into our living room. My parents let us play in the living room. We set up and we played. I think we sounded, it was cute. We probably sounded okay, and anyway, we clicked right away. John was extremely, I don't know, flashy, just charismatic.
Sure.
Day one, just really bouncy, just so much energy, bounced off the walls. Great drummer. And we clicked, and then we started doing gigs, and we started getting paid for gigs. And so it was a great experience. We would do gigs. His dad would drive us or my mom to the gigs. One gig I remember, his dad was, his mom and dad were just both great people. Mom was just really sweet, really strong lady. And his dad, Bill, was just the humblest, sweetest guy in the world. We would do these gigs, and I'm not kidding you. We maybe do 10 songs, at Saturday Night by the Bay City Rollers, Beth, Stairway to Heaven, a couple of other songs. They made me sing You Make Me Feel Like Dancing because I sounded like Leo Sayer, and his mom would make me sing that. And I hated singing it because I sounded like a chipmunk because I was 12, but they liked it. So we did a gig once, and I swear to you, we looked at the clock and it was already 11 o'clock. John's dad had moved the clock ahead an hour so we can get out early. And nobody knew because they were all drunk. So anyway, that's the deal. And the whole Beach Boys thing, I'll just say briefly because I'm rambling here, but John was a big fan of the Beach Boys.
Sure.
I liked them. I knew kind of who they were, but he was a big fan. And he used to tease me. He used to say, "Why do you listen to Bob Marley and Stevie Wonder and all this stuff?" I said, "Well, why do you listen to that, that white music?" and anyway, so that's kind of how that whole thing evolved later on with Jan and Dean and all that.
This is probably jumping way too far ahead, but you're still friends with John today. What sticks out to the root of that friendship that's still so vibrant and so strong today with John?
Well, if anyone knows John, and you've maybe met him, he is truly, sincerely one of the sweetest people. He's got a really big heart. And actually, many of us friends who have known him for years, we still talk to him. I mean, when I see him, it's like he's like a brother. It's like we never missed a step. So it really is rooted in the fact that I've known him my whole life, and he's known pretty much his whole life.
Yeah.
And nothing's changed. I mean, John was destined. We would go to malls before he was famous, and girls would look at him. I mean, he was always just very charismatic. But what roots that is that he knows the good, the bad. We've been through a lot together. He knows stuff about me that no one knows, and vice versa. So that's what it's rooted in. I talk to him, a couple times a month, but we text all the time, and that's really it. It's just a real sincere relationship. I don't expect anything of him, and he doesn't expect anything. He's John.
Yeah.
And that's enough, regardless of the immense fame.
Sure.
And I mean, it's like a storybook life with him, I mean, just how much he's loved the Beach Boys and how he gets the chance to not only be in their lives, but actually be instrumental in rekindling their career. I mean, it's just an amazing thing to see.
Well, it's also, and for me, being of my young age of 22, I don't want to say the good days of the Beach Boys, but the days of, Carl and who you were able to work with and meet and sort of take over when he had to step aside. But I never got to experience Dennis, so to sort of see John and sort of succeed Mike Kowalski and play drums, and to see him sort of have the career that maybe Dennis should have had if he sort of thought of the correct things to do and sort of went to the music world and movie worlds as he did. But it also speaks to the type of person that John is, to even, as you said, the fame that he has and all the success he's had, to still be grounded and appreciate and have a true liking to those who he grew up with, like yourself.
It is. It is a testament to John. And, it's interesting. And you mentioned guys like Mike Kowalski and all. These guys are my friends. I mean, I love these
Sure.
guys. That whole ride in the Beach Boys was just incredible.
Sure.
Dennis, I obviously didn't meet. He died in 1983, which was the year I graduated from high school. But I did know Carl, and I know Al, and Mike. I think Mike sometimes gets a bad rap, but I got to tell you, man, I love Mike, and he was
Sure.
is an extremely generous performer.
Sure.
He's the guy that nurtures and pushes people into the spotlight. He really loves talent.
Right.
He loves people to shine. So that speaks to him,
Sure.
and he's the hardest working. When we did gigs with Mike, whether there was 5 people in the audience or 20,000 or 100,000, Mike was always the same.
Sure.
We did a couple corporate parties where they were, not a lot of people, and he could get in that room and get people going. So I got my hat off to Mike Love for that. But Carl Wilson, I just feel honored to have known him, and the way I met him was a kind of an interesting story. I don't know if you know it or not, but it involves John. This whole thing involves John. You're 22. So when I was 21, I was staying the night at John's house, and I was going to go get a waiter job. I was in college already. I got a degree in psychology way back then. And he says, "Look, I may have done something for you." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, you're looking for a job." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, Jan and Dean?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, they want a young bass player." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Well, I got you an audition. I'm going to introduce you to Dean." So, okay. So met Dean. By the way, Dean and I are still great friends. I love Dean. I'll see Dean in a couple of weeks. He's another great, I can't even say enough about Dean Torrance. But anyway, I went over and I auditioned at Gary Griffin's studio. Chris Farmer was there. I think Randell Kirsch was there. I think John Calso was there. And anyway, got the gig and went on the road 2 weeks later at your age. I think I was 21 or 22. And I don't want to hog up the conversation, but if you want to hear how I met Carl, that involved Mike's. Or am I jumping ahead too much here?
Oh, no. I was going to ask you about that in a little bit, but I also wanted to ask you about that. You mentioned, going to college, a degree in psychology.
Mhm.
Music, I'm sure is a very strenuous on the mind, in the sense of starting out where you're trying to get to the level we can consistently do it to make a living and not have to worry about stuff. So for you to have that backup option, how much secure did you live, in the sense of, okay, if this doesn't work out musically, then I still have this other thing to back up on?
That is such a great question. It's interesting because I was always musical. My parents
Sure.
supported music. They never pushed me to go to college. And it was my own thing. And I had these weird dreams about, maybe I'll be a lawyer. First of all, I would hate being a lawyer. I'd be a bad lawyer. I don't even know what I was thinking. So I wanted to get an undergrad degree. And I did. And I graduated. I was already on the road with Jan and Dean, and I would fly home. They would have a week off in Hawaii, and I'd fly home to take tests, and stuff. We didn't have this back then as much where I could do that.
Sure.
I'm glad I did it, but there was never, honestly, I got to be honest, there was never a time in that 35, 40-year career of music that I ever thought, well, if this doesn't work out, I just was a musician.
Sure.
That's what I did. And I was very fortunate in that I was able to make contacts and have a really good career. So I never thought about falling back on anything until about 2018.
Sure.
And when I got off the road with the Beach Boys 2020 or 2002 or 2003 or whatever it was, I was off the road and I was home, but it was a lot more challenging because,
Sure.
you're not gone 7 months out of the year. You're not making that kind of money. So 2018, we were just having some tough times, and I had a friend that became a nurse, and he kept telling me 10 years before he started, I said, "I'm not a nurse. I'm not gonna be a nurse." Anyway, that's what happened in 2018. I just said, well, I'm going to use that psych degree finally that I never thought about falling back on, and I fell back on it, and it was a great thing.
You mentioned Jan, Dean, and the Beach Boys, which we'll talk about in a short bit. For you to experience that, to play two of the greatest bands of all time, two of the most historic bands of all time, was it easy for you at first to sort of deal with the trajectory you jumped highly up onto after joining both groups?
I would say Jan and Dean was pretty simple because we were all kind of friends, and it was just exciting. And I was just, wow, we're playing in front of all these people, and we're traveling all over the place, and I'm seeing places I would have never seen. I'm seeing Nebraska in the winter and going all over the United States. And it was just, I couldn't believe it, Jan was awesome, but he had his accident. And
Sure.
he was a sweet guy. Honestly, sometimes he could be a little difficult, but
Sure.
I think he got frustrated. Dean is like the most casual guy in the world. So there's never been any sense of, oh, this is Dean. He go, oh, cut it out. This is
Sure.
stupid. I go, okay, whatever, Dean. All right. These songs are stupid. No, they're not. People like them. I like them. But the Beach Boys, there was a big corporate era. There was a big team. There was a manager. There was a stage
Sure.
manager. There's buses. There's airplanes. And then when Carl walked in the room, it was like your music teacher's in the room. I remember, my very first gig with the Beach Boys, and there's two stories, and this is kind of funny. I was on stage and I'd never met Al. He walked over me and we were about to do In My Room, and he said, B, right? The key of B. I said, yeah, B. I said, you're asking me? I'm scared shitless out here. Excuse my language. And Carl Wilson, I think in that very same night, he came over to me. We all had ear monitors, I think, back then. And he said, check your tuning. I think your B string is sharp. And he was right.
Wow.
So you had that component. Carl did have an air of respect. When he walked on, everybody respected Carl. He was the glue. I mean, he kept everybody in line.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
With the former Beach Boys I've had on here, I've been lucky enough to have on here. I've all asked them this question. You hear in other interviews they do, where it's the Carl Wilson stare. So when they mess up on stage with them and they play the wrong note, because Carl can hear everything, every minute thing, similar to Brian. And I don't know about Dennis and what he was like, but Carl can hear everything. And you look once, he turns back to you, sees it again, hears it, and then the third time, and pardon my French, your ass is grass, and you're out of the group. And when you auditioned for them or you started playing with him and he was still around, was there any situation like that or experience like that with Carl, or was it that you had experienced it happen?
I didn't. I don't know if he felt sorry for me or he was just so sweet, but I didn't get the stink eye. And then after the stink eye, he'd come up to you and say, are you okay?
Yeah.
So it's funny. I remember Gary Griffin has a great story where Carl Wilson would give him that look a lot, and then Gary, being Gary, the sweetest guy in the world, would say, Carl, when you look at me that way, I don't know what I'm doing wrong and I don't know how to react. I mean, I don't know what to change, but you just look at me. And Carl just said, I know. He didn't even know. I mean, he's just like, but the thing was, so when I played at Mike Love's, I think it was his wedding to Jackie. I want to say 1995 or something. But anyway, we were the house band because I started working with Mike Love a few years earlier. It might have been 1990 or something, and I was still living at home. And I got a call from Jeff Foskett, who I kind of met through John, and picked up the old phones, connected to the coily wire. Phil, Jeffries Foskett, how you doing? I go, good. How are you? He goes, hey, Phil, I need you to go to Japan, Tokyo. Can you do it? I'm thinking, what? He goes, well, Mike Love, he's got it. There's a conflict. I think this and that. Can you? So anyway, long story short, I said, yeah. So we went up to Santa Barbara, met with Mike. My brother was also involved. We went up there and we auditioned and we had a great time. Anyway, a couple weeks later, we were in Tokyo with Mike Love. So I ended up playing in Mike Love's Endless Summer Beach Band for a few years. So because of that, Mike got married. He hired us to be his house band for the wedding. So we sang songs. We all put a set together. I think I sang Give Me Some Lovin'. I think I sang Tears of a Clown. Well, it was after I sang Tears of a Clown, we were on this big white tent in Lake Tahoe on Mike's property. John runs up to the stage. He says, Phil. I go, what? He goes, you got to sing more. Sing another song. I said, well, I don't have another song. This is a set list. He goes, Carl Wilson, Carl loves your voice. He wants you to sing more. I go, okay. Anyway, after the set, I came down. I walked down. He goes, hey, Phil, this is Carl. And Carl looks at me and goes, hey, Phil, nice to meet you. Hey, man, I love your voice, man. He goes, I love great singers. You got a great voice. I'm thinking, this guy's telling me. I go, wow, thank you so much. He goes, yeah, man. He goes, really. And he just so, I couldn't believe it.
Sure.
So anyway, later on in the evening, everybody said, Carl's going to sing God Only Knows.
Wow.
So we go, oh my God. So Carl gets up and he goes, we need a bass player. Because I was playing guitar that night. And John goes, hey, Carl, my friend Phil plays bass. And then Carl walks up to me and says, Phil, you play bass? He goes, yeah. He goes, do you know God Only Knows? said, well, I've never played it, but I have a pretty good ear. I think I can do it. And he looked at me and he said, honestly, man, I don't think you can do it. And he was so sweet. He was like, because in his mind, he's going, this young kid, it's like, this is God only knows. There's the bass is inverted. There's no, it's all over. There's a lot of interesting notes. It's
sure.
But anyway, I kind of knew the song and there was no one else available. He goes, okay. So we played the song and it worked out well. That eventually led to Carl, unfortunately, got diagnosed with cancer. I was on the road with Jan and Dean in the Midwest, got a call from Elliot Lott, their manager, saying, Phil, where are you? I said, I'm in the Midwest with Jan and Dean. He goes, can you be in Atlantic City tomorrow? So, well, I don't know. So I talked to Dean. They were able to fly someone out to finish the Jan and Dean thing. They flew me out to Atlantic City. I pulled up to the hotel. I saw Carl get into a limousine. They ended up taking him to the airport. He had to come back to get some treatment for the newly diagnosed lung cancer. Yeah. So I did those shows. And then eventually Carl came on the road. He came back, but he said, I want Phil there just in case. So I would literally sit on the drum riser or be on stage. And if he ever got tired or needed something, I could step in and play or sing. I ended up not doing it. Carl sat there. He sat down. I got to sit there and listen to him sing these songs amazingly. Unfortunately, he ended up, as we all know, passing away, I think in 98, at which point I was now in the band, trying my best to fill the biggest shoes ever, never filling them, just trying not to suck. And that's what went on.
Well, and not to get, sad and, morbid about it, but there are clips out there of, I think, his last or one of his last few gigs out there with the Beach Boys in the late 90s. And it's coupled in the same YouTube clip as Brian going out on the road and him saying, I can hear music, and God only knows near the end is still so beautiful. There's out there on Spotify. It probably Apple Music as well, depending on whatever you have. There's a live rendition of him saying, I can hear music. No, it's Sail on Sailor from 95. And even that was a few years beforehand, before he died, it was still so beautiful. I can't hit it. I'm nowhere near singing like that. I'm more of a shower singer, but you mentioned taking in and filling those shoes, which is a sort of thing I want to ask next. You joined the group and you're with them in the 90s for a few years. Mm-hmm. You're part of the group along with Scott Ton still being there and John Cowsill and a few others.
Scott was not there. Scott, I remember I was there when we auditioned Scott. They auditioned Scott in New York City, I think BB King's. So he came in. Scott Totten, when I retired myself, and they were gracious enough because I did the solo album. They brought in Scott Totten and John Cowsill.
Sure.
So I wasn't in the band with them.
When you, at that point though, you have Chris Farmer, who I've also had on here, and you had Tim Bonham, who was there in the late 90s, who is still there to this day.
Yep.
When you're part of that group at that point, sort of helping usher the group into a new period and sort of helping them keep the mission alive that they set in 62. Was that something that you had to come to grips with very fast, that now you're part of the show and you're helping Mike Love and Bruce continue?
Yeah. And Al at the time. half of me was floored, a little bit was scared, but I just had to embrace it. And I just went up and did the best I could every night. It was a little difficult at times when Gina, Carl's wife, would come to our shows and I'd be singing the parts that he sang so well. And part of me was like, oh my God, I can't do,
Sure.
But she would come around and, and it'd be terrible. It'd be hard for her, but I knew, I never in my right mind ever thought I was replacing Carl Wilson.
Sure.
You don't replace Carl Wilson.
Yeah.
You don't do that. So I just felt, well, I'm just going to do the best I can, give everything that I have. And I was honored, looking back at the time I met him, to be able to just stand in that place in honor of him, as I still do every night I ever sing, those songs with the Surf City All-Stars.
Sure.
I never forget. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about that, because in the late 90s as well, when you were with the Beach Boys, David Marks comes back to the band, and you worked with him with Surf City All-Stars when he joins you guys. What was it like to have him back in the fold of things with the Beach Boys? Because he's one of the original members.
I immediately clicked with David, and I love David. I still love David. David was going through a little bit of some stuff. He's had an interesting life, kind of being in the band and out of the band. And But I really, really enjoyed and still enjoy. I can't tell you. I love David so much. We're brothers. I talk to him, and we've shared some deep conversations together.
Sure.
He's a fantastic guitar player, really blues oriented.
Sure.
I really enjoy having him in the band.
Well,
He's just a heart. He's a
Sure.
big heart with legs and arms and
Sure.
legs. That's what he is.
Well, it was also good, and although I didn't see him then, but it was good to see him when they had their 50th anniversary with Al coming back and Brian coming back, and they had David as well, because it sort of was whole, although there were two missing pieces there. In 2001, around that time, you leave the group and you embark on your solo tour.
Mhm.
I just asked you about accepting and having to deal with very quickly coming in with the Beach Boys once Carl passes away. Were you ready, mentally to take on the task that was to be a solo career?
I don't know. I don't know if I was mentally, in retrospect. I think, I had some pretty good songs. I had an amazing producer named Bruce Gowdy that I worked with on that In a Perfect World album. I think the album was very good. I'm very proud of it. But honestly, Nolan, I don't know if I was mentally ready.
Sure.
I don't know if I ever in my heart wanted to step into that look at me role.
Sure.
Isn't that weird? I never felt like it was about me.
Sure.
Honestly, I loved being in the band. I think at that time, my life was a lot different. There was a lot of stuff going on in my own personal life. So I don't believe I was mentally ready
Sure.
at all.
Well, that
Yeah.
album, you had success. It was an interesting thing reading. You get noticed by 95.5's Mark and Brian,
Right.
and you win their contest on there of unsigned artists. When you have when you have that success, because you just said you might not have been ready, does that sort of help it when you get that when you get that success early on with your solo career?
Does it help? Does it help? I'm sorry. What do you mean by that?
Does it help you in the sense of be able to calm down and be ready for that, and accept what you have to do as a solo
Oh,
artist?
you mean the endorsement and the positive, the encouragement and all that?
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely helps. It definitely helps. But I'm thinking, and I'm not trying to get all psychological here, but I knew I was good. I knew it was good. And I was blown away, but there's always that part of you. And I think even people like Brian Wilson may have that. I'm not comparing myself to Brian
Sure.
Wilson at all, but there's always that little insecurity. It's like, really? They really
Sure.
like it? I mean, really? I mean, I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
like, it's weird. There's a fine line. You have to really believe in it. But I think personally, in order to do that, and this is just me, you have to realize it's not all about you. Because if you put that on you and I'm so great, I'm this, people love me, I think deep down, someone like me is going to say, well, I'm not that, I'm not trying to get psychological, but, I don't know if I was ready to embrace that in a healthy way. And the healthy way to do it is to kind of just see it for what it is. I believe, honestly, man, I think it's less about the music, but it's more about who you are as a
Sure.
person. Because we sit here and talk about Carl Wilson, the music, and this was a given. The
Sure.
voice was a given.
Yeah.
But if you talk to anyone about Carl, they're going to immediately talk about what a great guy he was.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was from the get-go, and everything that he had to deal with early on after Brian left the band. It just makes him a better person. After your first solo album, you've released a bunch of material. Two songs that I like, especially that you did, were off your album you did in 2005. The two songs were Never Too Late for Love and Dream with My Eyes Wide Open. I've been listening to since we got in contact, and it's been two of the top songs on the top of my Spotify list. I've been playing it real rock and roll with, which I like the sound of it. But when you're working on an album or single, whatever it may be, you're trying to, I would think you would try to make it better than the previous project you went on. For you as an artist, what's your goal each new project you're working on?
Well, so that album you mentioned was an album that I did for a label I think called Frontiers Records. And just to touch on this a bit, I'm a kind of a vocal chameleon. So when I joined the Beach Boys, going back to John teasing me about listening to Bob Marley, they literally would say, sing wider, no vibrato, Philip, just sing straight. So I literally learned how to sing like it's a character. So with the rock thing, a lot of people thought I sounded like Lou Gramm when I would sing that natural way. So that's how that happens. So nowadays, I don't I'm not doing albums. I'm just kind of doing song by song. And
Sure.
my goal with each song is to make it, I just want it to be a great song. I sit there and just work with it and work with it. And I want it to sound good. I want it to sound, so I align myself with people. Honestly, a lot of them are young like you that are just really great at this
Sure.
mixing and this computer. And that's what it is. I just want the song to be something I can listen to
Sure.
and like it.
Aye.
Because honestly, I'm my worst critic. There's albums I've done that I didn't listen to for years, or there's songs I've done and say I don't like it. That's funny. Those two songs you mentioned, there's people I work with that are nurses, and they go on the internet and they Google me and they find these songs. And those two songs, they mention that, and I kind of laugh. I go, that's so interesting. But they are great songs. I think they were written by Jim Pederick. A couple of those,
Sure.
who actually I think worked with Brian Wilson to some degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. Full circle.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm pretty. Was Jim the one who played? It wasn't Survivor, was it, that he played with, or am I?
Yeah. I think he wrote those songs, and he was in a band. I don't remember the name of the Knights of Eads, or what is it? They did that song Vehicle.
Sure.
But anyway, yeah, he definitely was great.
Yeah, I think he worked with Brian on the 50th anniversary new.
He did.
That
He
they
did
had
stuff.
done.
Yeah,
which is weird because you see him and you see his purple hair and his getup and his glasses and you see Brian, who you don't think, but that's the beauty of the Beach Boys. You see Brian working with someone of his nature and Jeff Beck, and then you see Mike Love working with Mark McGrath, and
I know.
And then you see him recently, Low Cash. You see, at 80 years old, they still can rock and roll. And it's amazing. We talked briefly at the beginning about having a great appreciation for stuff in life and what you've been through the last few years. You went back to school 2018 and you became an RN, and you've been doing that the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that compared to music and maybe working with your church gave you a greater appreciation, not just for yourself, but to help people in the world in general?
That's a great question, man. So it's interesting because sometimes people ask me, "Do you still do music?" I say, "Yeah, of course I do. I got a gig tomorrow. I'm actually doing a Beach Boys set tonight somewhere." But it really gives me an appreciation. The thing is, it's interesting, man. People at work, they find out kind of what I did, and they make a big issue about it. They said, "You're a Beach." No, I'm not a Beach Boy. I worked with the Beach Boys. I'm not, but it's kind of opened doors for me, and I have just a real appreciation. It's the same thing, where we do these songs. When you did a Beach Boy show, you saw anyone from 4 years old to 100, all digging the music,
Sure.
Right? It's like the Coca-Cola of music. There's nothing like it. It's beyond music. It's
Exactly.
like an institution. With nursing, I get a chance to have conversations with people and they open up. And, yesterday we sang Happy Birthday to a patient. It really gives you an appreciation, though, for life, because I'm in the room a lot with families and people
Sure.
are dying. I'm there at their last moments. So it kind of opens your eyes to the fact that life is precious and it's important to make every day the best thing, and making people happy in the same way. Like I like to go in the room and joke and make people feel comfortable. And it's the same thing we do with music. And it's the same thing that those Brian Wilson songs do. I owe a debt of gratitude to Brian and Mike for all these
Sure.
great songs. So that it's really it's the same thing. I may not be singing, but it's the same concept. You're making people happy and you're helping them and you're giving them a piece of joy or a peace of mind.
What was harder for you? And maybe I would think maybe it was the educational aspect nowadays, but what was harder, starting in music at a young age and getting successful, or going to school and then becoming a nurse?
I would say going to school, becoming a nurse. Music is second nature to me. Like
Sure.
just the way I breathe in and breathe out, I don't think about it. Music, I was kind of always, I think I had a natural
Sure.
inclination towards it. Never had to work very hard at it. I've never taken vocal lessons
Wow.
really. And I just something that came natural. You just, and so in any situation, I kind of automatically felt comfortable.
Sure.
It wasn't pride, maybe a little bit when I was younger, but more confidence. With nursing, even though I had that psych degree, I was daunting, man, because I thought, oh my gosh, I got to go back. First of all, I had to learn how to do math again because I had to take the entrance exam to get into nursing school. So I had to talk to my kids in school and say, how do you do this? So there's no doubt, man. Even though I ended up doing really well in school and I met a lot of great people who also looked me up and were blown away, and people your age in nursing school. And I go, how do you even know these people? They go, the Beach Boys. Are you kidding me? So it was kind of a cool experience, but way, way harder.
Sure. How do you balance both though? Or at that point, how were you able to balance both music and whether it's still now today's with nursing or when you were doing school?
How do I balance it? Man, I'm still trying to figure that out. The thing about nursing is that I work at a place that's really cool. We can make our own schedule, and I work 3 12-hour shifts a week.
Okay.
So that opens up a lot of other time to do my schedule. I do find myself pretty busy during the summer because I have gigs and stuff. So,
Sure.
but it's all good. You know, I'm actually at the end of the month, I'm going to Iowa with Dean Torrance,
Wow.
for a few days. So balancing it out, I'm not sure I'm doing a great job at it, but I'm getting the schedule filled. So,
Well, it definitely makes you appreciate life and to be able to do it in general, and it keeps you going, keeps the vital signs pumping. Now, before I let you go, and I like I said earlier, I'm appreciative and gratified for the time that you've allowed me to chat with you today. I want to end on a little segment called the One Word Challenge. So, and
okay.
this what I do is I throw out a few names of people, places, or things that some connection to you, and you have to do your best to say a word or two that comes to mind. So, are you ready?
Yep.
Kingston, Jamaica.
Oh God. Music. My dad.
SoCal.
Son. Music too.
Mike Love.
Generous. Energy.
John Stamos.
Heart. Love.
Music.
Love God.
And last but never least, Philip Anthony Bardowell.
Confused, grateful.
Well, sir, this has been a treat and a pleasure, and to pick your brain and hear stories of your life and your musical journey from 5 years old to your current day. It's been a true treat and an honor for me. So thank you again.
Thank you, Nolan. I got to commend you, young man. You're a great interviewer, and I wish you the best, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, of course, and if ever I'm in Southern California for some reason, whether it's a concert or whatnot, we'll have to meet up.
Love that. I would love it. Where do you live, by the way?
Rhode Island. I live in
Awesome.
I live about an hour from Boston, so there isn't a whole lot of music in terms of in the state a lot. There isn't a whole lot of situations like Southern California. We can walk around and say, hey, there's this celebrity, there's this person. So this is my ability to chat and meet with people who have a lot to share. Well, for all those out there, and to be honest, who wouldn't want to, I'm about to say, like, comment, share, subscribe, share all that fun stuff, because down the road, and you see Philip and he wins a Grammy like Bruce Johnston, you're going to say, holy crap, I should have subscribed, like, and commented and all that fun jazz. In the words of Johnny Carson, I bid you a heartfelt good night. Till next time, my friends, take care.